Sometimes it might rain, sometimes it might snow, sometimes you might cry, be sad, you know what that's shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man, shades of a man. Sometimes you might stop, sometimes you might go. You might make mistakes, but that's just how you grow. Shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man, shades of a man.
My relationship at the time and where I was in the relationship, and we had started to become opponents. We started to do things for each other based on how we felt they did for us. Probably didn't make no sense. Let me try to explain that better. I would only cook dinner. This is just an example. I would only cook dinner if she cleaned the dishes. That type of opponent. It became like a tit for tat. I pay all the bills, you should clean. I pay most of the bills, you should clean. I work longer, you should cook. It was just, we never were able to come to a what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Shades of a Man podcast, where we dig deep here. We talk about subjects that really hit home. And I use myself as an example in many cases because my experiences, I believe, can help others grow. We're in part 2 or word 2 of our 6-word or 6-session series called Loving. And it didn't start out this way. I just wanted to talk about lust. When I started talking about lust, I realized that what does loving look like? Because lust is definitely a part of what needs to be suspended or abstracted from love. But what does it really take to love? And I just started thinking how I just had all these words come into mind and things that needed to happen from my standpoint, and why at 52 years old, my only real loving self was a child. So today's word. So lust was the L. O is the only noun. All the other words are verbs, because I believe love is an action, right? It's not a feeling, it's an action. You do things for love. Just my opinion. I'm no expert in this, obviously, but no one is. You can't tell someone else what's love for them. Everyone has their own version of what love is. Love should just feel safe and should be filled with happiness. But this noun, opponent, oh man, it really is going to drive this word love or loving, because the 6 series is loving. How do you become a loving person? And at first I said man, but because this is shades of a man, but it's really a loving person, because a lot of the elements that men struggle with, women struggle with too, and vice versa. So don't get it mixed up or confused that men and women don't struggle with some of the same topics. Women struggle with lust as well as men, because I spoke to a few women about that, and they indicated that they too struggle with that. And to take that a little bit further, they also said it's a lot easier for them to cheat more discreetly because they don't have to search for it, which was like, wow. Whew, that just opened up a can of worms for me. All right, so we're going to jump into this. First, I'm going to read the poem, and then I'm going to read the poem that kind of, for me, goes with opponent. What does it mean to be, what do you got to get rid of the person being an opponent, okay? So this poem is called Love Pain. Love Pain. Tears drop like a tropical storm, racing down the cheeks, nose running, voice hoarse, and the body aches. A love which was built to last has faltered and now it is a memory. Though you want to repair it, there is no hope, just undone attempts. Why did he lie? Why does she cry? Is there a good way to say goodbye? The coming days are long and empty. Everything relates to what now is gone. Nothing is fun. Sick with love or without. No medication to make you feel better. Smiles are pretend. Moving on is like pushing a truck up a hill with the brakes on. Does he feel the same? Does she still call my name? Why does this temporary love end with so much pain? So, what is an opponent, right? The poem didn't really talk about an opponent, but the poem really talked about, when I wrote that poem, it was when after me and I think my son's mother broke up, and I wrote that poem because we were each other's opponent. It wasn't about us, it was about her, or was it about me? And we were fighting against each other, not fighting for each other. And the relationship was bad. And it was the last oppositional relationship I had to that level, but I still carry oppositional qualities. Not because of that, just because I haven't solved my personal issue with competition. I can admit when I'm wrong. I can admit when you're right. But many times I'm still in competition because I'm always trying to get better. And I know I need to work on that part of me before I ever move forward. So an opponent to me is, when I look at it, is love cannot coexist with an enemy mindset. So if your partner is someone where you're going to rival with, where it's like, it's a rival, like the Red Sox and the Yankees, like the Cowboys and the Eagles. If you're a rival, Michigan and Ohio State, there's going to be conflict. You have to be an ally. You have to be working together. That doesn't mean you're going to agree on everything. That means that you're working together with each other. Okay. When you view someone as an opponent, even the one you love, you enter the relationship ready to win instead of ready to understand. I don't believe my last relationship ended because I wanted to win. I truly tried to understand. In fact, I did understand. I did understand. I understood that I wasn't healed, that I entered the relationship with deep feelings and hurt feelings for someone else. And I believe, unconfirmed, that my partner also wasn't healed and was suffering in her own way for many things, just like I was. And even though we tried to bring that forth, those are difficult topics to wrestle with when you're each other's opponents, as we became. Control over mindset allows humility to lead. Humility. You have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to suffer a little bit in your love and what you're about to go through. Not pride. Humility over pride in a relationship. Pride will suck love dry. Love isn't about scoring points. I did this for you, now you got to do this. It's about building peace. It's about building peace. So how many of you became your significant others, your lovers, your husbands, your wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, partner's opponent, enemy, the person you were in competition. Even if it wasn't said to be in competition, you began to be in competition. I'm going to tell you a story that's separate, that when I knew I needed to work on the skill, and I discovered it in the middle of my relationship, and it had nothing to do with my relationship. Me and my mother go bowling. At the time, I think we went bowling every Saturday. Now it's Tuesdays. So we go bowling, right? And my mother's a longtime bowler, and I started bowling, and I hadn't bowled in a while. So the first couple of times we went, I didn't really care because I ain't bowled in a while. So if she beat me, it didn't matter. And then it got to the point where I was inconsistently good. Like, so I'll be 200, 100. And, and now when my mother beats me, I'm like getting mad. Through this process, I remember playing my mother and like hoping she played bad so that I could win. I never forget it. Like, I was so angry because I was bowling bad and she was bowling good. And I was like angry. I was like getting angry at my mom for bowling well. And I had to check myself. Like, I really checked myself like afterwards, because I was like stomping and I just started going up and throwing the ball. I was acting like a little kid for real because I was losing to my mom. And on the way home, I sat down. I said, you know what? That's my mom. Like, she's playing against the pens just like I am. We're not throwing punches at each other. We're not like, of course I want to bowl well, but I'm not trying to I'm not trying to win over my mom. I'm trying to knock the most pens down. And in all honesty, nothing I did about my bowling game changed, but I became a better bowler and a better son, right? And a better cheerleader for my mother, because I stopped trying to beat her and started trying to knock down more pins. And thought about my relationship at the time and where I was in the relationship. And we had started to become opponents. We started to do things for each other based on how we felt, or how we felt they did for us. Probably didn't make no sense. Let me try to explain that better. I would only cook dinner. This is just an example. I would only cook dinner if she cleaned the dishes. That type of opponent. It became like a tit for tat. Like, I pay all the bills, you should clean. I mean, I pay most of the bills, not all the bills. I pay most of the bills, you should clean. I work longer, you should cook. Like, we never were able to come to an even, like, listen, on these days, because you work and, you do this. On these days, you don't work, you do this. That because we were opponents. And, I don't think communication is cool. People say, oh, what's important to you in a relationship? And they say, oh, communication. Well, why? People communicate on the internet. People communicate on the phone all the time. They don't get anything accomplished. So it's really understanding and working together with one another, sacrificing in some places, and being a leader in this area and not the leader in this area. And, knowing when to be the boss and the worker, and knowing when to be the chief and not the chief. All of these elements that were not present in us because we became each other's opponents. And these things spiral. Being someone's opponent will spiral. It will make things worse. When you get to a point in a relationship, because that's not the only relationships I ever been someone's opponent. But when you get to those points where you see that it's like it's like your way or her way, or whatever type of relationship you're in. When you get to those points, it's essential for you to check and stop and say, whoa, all right, I went into this relationship, which means it's not always going to be my way. So how can I work with them so that we can get to a better place? And the unfortunate thing is that one person can't do it. One person can't do it. Because I know 100%, I know factually that there were times where I did something correctly and went about it the right way, said it the right way, but because of something else that I may have done in the past, the conversation went another way. And vice versa. I was approached with an issue the right way, not to be confrontational, and it didn't go the way in which I wanted it to go. So I shut it down, even though I shouldn't have, because of how I was feeling about something else. And that's what happens when you're somebody's opponent. Let's put this into like a visual context. So we're on a team, and let's say I know basketball well, so we're a basketball team, and we're playing another team, and me and my team, I pass the ball to my teammate, he drops it, he fumbles up, and I get mad and I say something. I'm like, "Oh man, you gotta catch the ball," and he said, "Oh, you gotta make a better pass," and we argue for a split second. Right? Should not affect the rest of the game, and if it does, then I'm an awful teammate, and if the other person is the one, they're an awful teammate. Because what typically happens is you move on, and the next opportunity to have a conversation, you'll be like, one person, all they have to do is say, "My bad." No worries, that was my bad. I should have caught that. My bad, bad pass. Yo, my bad. I should have caught that. Right? And you both take accountability that you were both in the wrong, and then you go right back at it together to work together. That's an appropriate way. That's how a relationship should work. Like, there are going to be times when you may do something, say something, where they may say something, and then you get together with each other and say, "You know what? My bad." And be like, "You know what? Yeah." And what it really takes in those situations, and I'm reflecting, it just came to my mind, is that even sometimes when it's not your fault, just say, "My bad, my bad." That's like the ultimate, team player. In a relationship, you got to be a team player. And I want you guys just to sit for just a second on that and think about how many times, and I'm not talking about the big issues. I'm talking about, because you heard this before, and it's so true. Small small issues turn to big issues. Small issues turn to big issues. And when we don't address the small issues, we never can address the big issues correctly. I almost think there should be like a conflict resolution day for like relationships, and where you write down something that you're struggling with, and you have a day where you plan on like solving it together. Make it a game. Make it something to look forward to. I don't know how to do that. I'm just thinking about it. I don't know how to make that fun, but problem solving together. So it's not. So you're not looking like, because the communication starts to go when someone is your opponent. Because what happens is you come home, had a long day, you don't like something, you either address it or you don't. You feel like you address it, there's a problem. You don't address it, there's a problem. Now, why? Why is there a problem if you don't address it? If you don't address something, it's going to bother you. And so you must at some time address it. You have to find the appropriate time and manner to do so, and not sound like an opponent. You can't sound like an opponent. Can't sound like an opponent. That is key. I remember I did 75 hard the first time. And so I did 75 hard the first time. My girlfriend decided she was going to do it with me. That was great. 75 hard was was amazing for I think us. But I don't know. It was amazing for me. So 75 hard, you have to drink a gallon of water a day. You have to read 10 pages in a book. You have to do a 45-minute outdoor workout. You have to do a 45-minute indoor workout, 2 a day. The workout's got to be 3 hours apart. And you have to follow a meal plan, and you have to take a picture every single day. And so me and my girlfriend, we set out to do this, and we did this, and we're doing it. And the first 2 days, I had put lemon in my water. And that was, you couldn't put lemon in your water, even though I'm drinking a gallon of water a day. And like I said, my integrity would not let me like say, oh, it's just lemon, and then keep it moving. Because then I know at the end, I didn't follow the rules for the program, right? It is amazing that, I have cheated and did all these other things, but something about you give me a challenge, I can be I want to be honest about it, right? When no one might not know, stupid. These are like the conditionings that we have in life. And so I started all over on day 2. So we get to the end. It was a struggle. I don't know how many times we might have. I don't. Yeah, I mean, how we had some very emotional talks while walking. And like it, like we were going downhill. Like the conversations were going downhill. Like we would spend the whole 45 minutes like in an intense like talks, and then as time went on, they started to the talks got like where we were actually having good communication talks that were beneficial for our relationship and really made me appreciate who she was. And so we get to the end, we walk together. I don't know, like not every day, but we probably walk together 3 or 4 days a week. So just imagine, if you don't spend a ton of time with your partner, and now you got 45 minutes with them every day walking. You're getting a lot of, like, you can get a lot done in 45 minutes. And we just talked, like, so it was cool. And then her day 75 came, and right like the week before, I had bought her a shirt. Like I was so like, and I was so proud of her, like, because it's a hard thing to do. I bought her a shirt and I celebrated with her, right? And I was so happy, yo. And then that, I don't know if she went to work that day or whatever. I did everything. Was it a Sunday? It was a weekend, because I remember I did everything I was supposed to do. I meal prepped. I did my post for the week. Because when you're on 75 hard, you're so like focused on, like, your time management is on point. I did so much on that Saturday, and I remember, no, it was day 74. Nope, it was day 74. So 73 she finished. Day 74, that was the first day of the program that we did not take our picture together. And I didn't take the picture that morning. Oh, I never thought. Now, and this is the crazy thing, I always open my phone and go through the app to see what I did that day. But I got so caught up in, I don't know what, on day 74, that I didn't take my picture. I didn't take my picture. So we go through day 74, right? Like, I go to sleep. Last day, 75. Like, listen, I woke up with such excitement. Like, I was so excited, because I was the last day of 75 hard. I was going to accomplish something that I deemed impossible. I deemed for myself impossible, because I was like, there's no way I'm going to want to read 10 pages a day, which, by the way, became the most enjoyable part of 75 hard for me, was to read the 10 pages a day. But I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to read 10 pages a day. No way, blah, blah, blah. And I got through, and I was so happy. I woke up, right? And that morning, I opened my app first thing, because I was just like, wanted to see day 75. And it said, like, I don't know if it said fail, but it said like no picture or something. And I remember, like, my emotional state went from, like, I'm talking about, like, imagine hitting the game winning shot and you celebrate, running around the gym, and then they review it and they say no. I mean, for the championship, not no game winning shot in a regular season game. This is the NBA Game 7. You hit a half court shot and you think the game is over. You're running around. You done celebrated. They done carried you. 3 minutes later, they say, no, wave the basket off. You lose. That's what it felt like. And I cried. I started crying. I was so distraught. I was like, and she was in there. I think she was sleeping or something. I said, why didn't you remind me to take my picture? And I was like, you should have reminded me. I said, we took our pictures together every day. It was like I tried to put the blame on her initially. I really did, because I was like, and because every day we took a picture together, because we were doing it together, and then we didn't. And it was like, I was feeling that she didn't do what she should have. She came to the gym, she just left. She didn't have to take a picture. Hey, baby, make sure you take your picture. And she didn't. And it was like, and it's not her responsibility, but that's how I felt in the moment, trying to really gather how I messed up. And key word there, how I messed up. Now, by the end of the day, I say, you know what, it's not your fault and everything. But the damage was done, because I did point the finger to her about why, why weren't you there with me through this process? And that is like being an opponent, in both ways. Now, I didn't handle the situation right. And I don't think she handled it right. Even afterwards, it wasn't like, I needed to be consoled. I needed to be told it was okay. I needed to be like, you did so well. You did 73 days. Like, I needed a lot, like, at that moment. And I eventually, I think I started over like the next day and I did the 75 hard and I finished. So it was like 150 days plus, for me. But I wanted more. But because we set up that, I guess in that situation, I know in that situation, I set up the opponent thing. Because initially I tried to point the finger, and didn't initially own that I forgot to take the picture, which I did. Because when I realized how I forgot it, she was involved, because we took our pictures together for almost 73 days. And there was multiple times throughout where we reminded each other to do certain things, because we were in it together. And so even though it may not have been true, I felt like she finished and it was like, oh, I'm done. No more help for you type stuff. And maybe that wasn't the case, but I felt that way. And I made her feel some type of way because I point the finger at her. And now we're at odds. And to be totally honest, we never addressed that. Like, that little thing throughout our relationship never got addressed to where we concluded to say, I understand how you feel, and keep it moving on both parts. Like, neither one of us came to a positive conclusion. I think when you become wow. See, and these are the things about doing a podcast. Sometimes you start talking and you realize things. When you become, so there's a game, right? So if I'm really playing against you, right? We're playing basketball, right? And once I score 21, the game is over. I win. In a relationship, nobody wins when you're on a different page. So even if the argument is like, I had the better debate and I ended up being right, I didn't win, because we got to move forward. So we got to be on the same page. When we're an opponent, nobody wins. You both lose. The winner and the loser of whatever's going on when you're oppositional both lose. You both lose. So there is no winner when you become your partner's opponent in a relationship. And if when it you yes, and understand this, just there's gonna be times where one person does something and then you have to come back and apologize to that person. That's not winning. You didn't win because they apologized to you. That's just the right thing to do. You didn't lose because you apologize, because it's the right thing to do. It's morally correct in that relationship to apologize when you're wrong. Sometimes it's morally correct in the relationship to apologize when you're not wrong. When you're not the person's adversary, you will do that. You will sometimes apologize for things you didn't do, and it's not a bad thing. Now, just apologizing for being right, or like if you're in a lopsided abusive relationship where you're apologizing so you don't get beat up, that's a whole different ball game. I'm talking about the standard, like like there was a lack of communication, something went wrong, someone didn't pick up the baby, someone didn't pick up somebody from baseball practice, and there was a miscommunication, and one of the two of you were wrong, and then somebody has to apologize because those things happen. I thought you were picking up Bobby from the game. No, you said you were because you had, but I had a doctor's appointment, so I told you to. And, maybe the person didn't. Maybe they forgot to. Maybe they said, oh my God, no, but they noticed that after the fact, and you have to come back and say, you know what, I'm sorry. It was my fault. I forgot to tell you that I had an appointment, so I couldn't pick up Bobby. I thought you knew, and, it was a miscommunication. That's how they should work. And it's not, yeah, I won. I knew I was right. That's why she apologized. And sometimes in relationships, we get to that point where it's like we're expecting an apology so that we can feel victorious. Or we just keep trying to drill our point in for so long and so hard so that we can win the conversation. Okay, or win the point. I used to get into arguments about things that really didn't matter. And I would argue it to, forever. Even and I think the point was a lot of times, so I would never argue something that I didn't really know anything about. But if I had a nice knowledge of something, boy, I would go in with my partner to try to prove that I was right. But I would never really argue things I didn't know, in that field. I would ask questions because I didn't know. So for me, I've been on an opponent side. So how now I play like so we have lust, and dealing with lust for me, I had to break down the steps of what I need to do, and that's not look at dirty movies. That's not get into intimate relationships before I really care about the person enough to like. It's not just a physical thing; that it's a mental thing before we begin touching in any kind of manner. I have the steps, and the sad thing about that is that I've had those steps and I knew those things 20 years ago, and it wasn't comfortable. Loneliness is not comfortable. Being an opponent to somebody is, I think that's more of a two-way street. And that's why that's the only noun, because that really requires you really doing your due diligence when you choose your partner, doing your due diligence when you choose your partner, and having a lot of conversations, controversial conversations, understanding conversations about life, and not trying to sugarcoat anything. And I don't think I've done that for a long time. Like, I don't think I've tried to be an individual that I was not for a long time to achieve a woman. I think I've been more honest as each one of my relationships has progressed. And I just think that people, like I think people think that some of the things that I struggle with, I'm just going to change without support, and vice versa. I think some people think that they're going to, and I think they're gonna change and become something without the support. And support must be done correctly. Must be done correctly. So for an opponent, right? So how you become an opponent? Like you have to understand like when someone's asking a question and why. So I'm a solver. I'm a solver. So I try not to, that does not always happen. I try not to complain about things that I have no control over or that I'm not fixing or trying to fix. I like to find solutions before I start complaining, strategies to fix the problem. So typically if someone comes to me with a problem, I start giving solutions. But you have to know when to provide a solution because sometimes people come to you with a problem that they just want to complain about. They already have what they're going to do about it if they could do anything, but they just want to complain about it. They just want to vent about it. They just want you to listen and maybe just say, I'm sorry that you're going through this. Give them a hug. Why don't you sit down and relax? If you have duties in the house, I'll wash the dishes tonight, or I'll take such and such to basketball practice, or do whatever to compensate, to give them rest. Why don't you go? Here's, go get your nails done, or whatever. Sit on the couch, watch your favorite show. I don't know, whatever you have that brings that person peace. You try to present them with that in that moment. Instead of providing a solution. But you have to know when. And this is where your partner is crucial, because I could become the enemy in that situation because they come to you and then they come to you with a problem, and then I'm giving solutions to something they don't want solutions for, or they got it already solved. And then now you're having an argument possibly about you trying to fix a problem that they didn't really want you to fix. I've kind of been in that situation where I try to fix stuff that they didn't want me to try to fix because that's who I am. And then your partner understanding that as well, and then possibly saying to you at the onset, like, "Hey, I don't want a solution for this. I just need to get it off my chest." So you understand that, okay, I ain't trying to fix this right now. She don't want that. That's not what this is about. This is just about listening, sometimes not responding. And I tried that today. I talked to a friend today, and I gave a little brief history. Then I said, you know what? I said, I'm just going to ask you some questions, and I just let them talk. And I responded to maybe one of the 8 questions with some kind of like, not this is going to fix it, but this is just a response. Because complete silence for some people is also not as good as we think it is. They want some type of response. I was actively trying to listen without making it seem like I knew how to fix the problem, because you don't know how to fix somebody else's problem. It's not a engine in a car. You don't plug it into a machine and the diagnostic says, oh, it's a O2 sensor in the Cadillac converter, and then you fix it. It's not that simple when it comes to a person. Okay, people are way more complicated than a car when it comes to fixing problems. So we have to understand that what we say sometimes is not a solution. Advice is not a solution. That's why when you give advice to people, they don't always take it. Advice, you give somebody advice for them just to listen to an alternative. Okay, that's why that's why when you have a friend that's in a bad situation and you're giving them advice and they keep repeating it, and you then get mad and say, you know what, I told you not to do this 7 times, and you just cut them off. You just throw them through the wolves. Okay, sometimes you gotta support people throughout their struggles. And support doesn't mean, example, like an alcoholic. Support doesn't mean you go drink with them or you give them money because they need money to get some wine or something like that. Support is you just let them know, hey, when you're ready to, get sober, I'm here. I'm always going to be here when you're ready to get sober. And don't call me, if you get a DUI or if, you get locked up because you've been drinking. I'm not, that's not the type of help I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you want to, when you want to start on day one, I'm here for you. And if you're on day 3 and you drink and you want to start all over on day 1 again the next day, I'm here for you. But I'm not here for you if you're not trying to work on yourself. That's the type of support I mean. I don't mean just taking them in and just making sure they don't drown themselves, because then they're never going to fix themselves, because you're always there to pull them out of their problem. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of issues. I mean, there's a lot of elements to loving someone, but this noun opponent, this person, the other person, like you being like, is important. It's important that you have the right noun. You have the right person that is able to understand you, right? It was funny because somebody said to me, "Oh man, like you're telling people a lot of stuff about you. You're not afraid that like women are not going to want to date you." And so, I thought about it for a second. I really did. I thought about it for a quick second, and I said, "No, I'm really not. I'm not afraid that women, plural, women are not going to want to date me, because I'm no longer intrigued by women." And they didn't get it at first. And I had to continue like a little. I let it pause to see if they got it. They didn't. And then I said, did you know what I mean? And he was like, well, like people might be turned off. And I said, yeah, but I'm not looking for women. I know that in order for me to get the things that I truly want, I can't be in search of things in plurals, because that's only going to end me back in the same situation that I've always been. And that's an ending relationship. So I'm searching for a woman, singular. Did I say that right? I said woman, one man. But I don't know how to put that. I didn't know how to put that in context of what I was saying, but just one, right? So, and that's saying that the one, when you're not like the search really for somebody that wants that is a search for singular, for one. So I'm hoping that every woman doesn't jump at me, because then that'd be a problem as well. People don't too many like we watch these reality shows, The Bachelor. I don't watch them, but people do, The Bachelor and these drama shows, and they really complicate us. I mean, I don't watch them, and that's like I'm more concerned than jealous, right? Like I'm not really jealous, because I know if someone's going to cheat, they're going to cheat regardless if I'm going through their phone or not, like, or if I'm stalking them down or not, like they're going to do it regardless. Like I can't keep tabs on you all the time enough to cheat. But these shows make it seem like, always makes it seem like you're in competition with somebody else. And that's not healthy for the mind and the conscience, that, that you're in competition with this woman because they're putting these shows up there where these men are and women are going on multiple dates with multiple guys in the same house and trying to love this person and love that. And it's really like, in my opinion, it's disturbing. It may be entertaining to people. I've kind of sat and watched some of the drama like that I didn't want to watch, but because it is entertaining. But within the entertainment, these things get inbred in us. I used to didn't think that the effect of TV, the effect of music. I did a couple of studies when I was in college on like the effect of music, like the effect of violence in cartoons on children, the effects of violence in music on teens. And I did all those studies, and my outlook was always like, oh, they're listening to Onyx and NWA. They don't make me violent. And I was wrong. They didn't make me violent, because I started trying to create this image of myself. Like I wanted to be like the song. So you had to like, and I remember being in clubs sometime, like, eyeing dudes down on a certain side, like, you know what I'm saying? You got, and so the effects of this TV shows that The Bachelor and ones it's probably a whole bunch of them, but that's the only one I can really recall like watching, because like I said, I don't really watch any of them. They create a lot of distrust, insecurities for people, because like I just couldn't imagine like going on a show trying to find the love of my life and like doing the things that I have seen on these shows. It's just crazy to me. And mind you, some of the things I done for love is nuts. If you listen to the last episode and how I introduced this episode by saying to you that, I was not emotionally over someone and I was putting band-aids on with other women and then met the person that I was going to marry. With all these unhealed things going on, because I just was all about the band-aids. And a year ago, I knew I was going to be single around this time last year. It was actually a week ago. What's today? Today's the 11th. On November 4th, I made the decision. I signed up for Uber. I was like, yo, I'm going to start driving Uber, make up this extra income, and I'm going to be single. And I had to wait a little bit, and I couldn't start. And then, I didn't want to start after school. And then I started. But I knew it a year ago. Right away, right? When the relationship was at the end, when it was like confirmed, when there was like it's over, when we both was like it's over, I was putting band-aids on like immediately, like I didn't want to be alone, I didn't want to be in pain, I didn't want to think about it, right? And this is why not having someone your opponent is so important, right? Because it should have never gotten to that stage where I wanted to, if the person wasn't my opponent, right, it would have been done. Even if it didn't work out for whatever reason, we would have done it would have been done ethnically on both parts, and it would have been done with the utmost respect from both parts. And it was not because because I only can speak for myself. I was completely unhealed, and and then I just rolled with it. I rolled with it. Like as it's falling apart, I'm rolling, right? And now we really opponents. Now I'm talking about when you break up with somebody, right? You really become, if you're not emotionally stable and you're not really respectful, you become opponents. You become opponents in a war. And I don't wish it upon nobody. Like, and I'm so happy, and I don't wish a war between two people. When you have when there's a war going on in you, and then you're in war with somebody else, is an ugly thing. And as I wrap up this podcast, I'm gonna briefly I know what it's like to be somebody's opponent, and my feeling after everything that's occurred so much, right? I don't have any animosity in my soul. I don't. And I'm not healed by no means. I just know in my heart that in order for me to move forward, that the only thing that can be in my heart, if I want it, is love. That's the only thing that can be in my heart, is love, for love. And even when you move on from something, like, it still should be love. And too often we move away from situations with hate, with animosity, usually caused by hurt and us being ungrateful. And that hurt just gets passed on to the next person. It just gets passed on. It doesn't end with the person that you hated. It just gets passed on, because hate doesn't leave the soul, doesn't leave the body. And once you get into that oppositional manner, once you become someone's opponent and you're trying to win, and then it doesn't work out and you start to hate, now you move on and you become this next person's partner, but you still have that hate in your soul. It's going to come out on that person as well, because you've learned these things. You have to rearrange everything about your soul, everything about your mindset, everything. It has to be rearranged. And ultimately, you have to forgive. And just me personally, I forgive with love. And, and people mistake love. Like, if I was to tell you that every ex that I ever had that was significant in my life, that I still love them. For a new person, that would be like, oh my God, that means that at any point in time, he could leave me for them. And I used to think that. And I used to think that type of thought, because I was oppositional. I was oppositional. So if I'm not with you, I had to be hated. I had to hate you. But how can I hate something that I claim to have love? Not because you don't hate someone because they did something to you. Like, you don't really understand. Like you're hurt. It's pain. It's different. But we associate it with hate, and then we portray that on the world around us. And we try to be the sweetheart, but as soon as we start to feel that pain because we didn't solve it, we turn back into that. And I'm guilty of it. And I'm like, I really am moving forward where I love, to this day, all the women I had significant relationship with and relationships with. And I'm not saying I love them to get back with them, to be with them, to hope that. No, I love them because they were an important part of my life. They were a piece of my life for a period of time. They brought growth through my life, even if it was painful. Even though I may not have looked at it at the time, they made me in some way better. Definitely made me better. And how can I look at that with hate if I get better? How can I look at someone that I thought enough to move in with me, or to say it's my girlfriend, or meet my family, and then turn around and be that way? It's really not who I am. It's really what pride sometimes over humility would do. Pride over humility would cause you to hate something that you should leave loving. And I know this would never happen, but I would love, to heal with any of my former girlfriends in any kind of capacity if they have struggles that I have been the catalyst to. I wouldn't have any problem at all in an appropriate setting walking through the healing process together with them, especially now. And I couldn't say that, 3 years from now, I meet somebody, we're in a good relationship, a good space. And this is the thing about having the right person. I don't know if I would be able to do that, because that wouldn't be appropriate. I don't think. But maybe it also would be appropriate. When I was young, when I was very young, I remember having a girlfriend, and I want to say it was college, and it wasn't even a girlfriend. It was a girl I was dating, so I shouldn't say a girlfriend. She had a bad end of a relationship with a guy, and I remember her going home for like Thanksgiving, and her calling me and saying, "Hey, I want to run something by you, and I want you to, what do you think?" Because I was more her friend than like, her lover. So, and she met with her ex, and they talked, had a heart to heart. I admit I was a little jealous because I was trying to get to know her, and like that was her first. So I was like, okay, men, we have these dumb ideals like that. If you have sex with a virgin, like she's always yours for the rest of your life, like type thing. And I believed that back then. And so I'm trying to get in with her, and then she wants to go see her first love, the guy who lost her virginity to. And I remember we didn't have cell phones what we do today. So I remember, and I had no long distance. So I remember like that was like on she told me that like on Wednesday that they were gonna meet like on Wednesday for lunch or whatever. And I had to wait till like Monday to like have the conversation because that's when she got back in town to school, so we could have the local phone call. And that's the other wonderful thing about the pastime. Like I had a lot of time to think about it, which wasn't that good, but I also had a lot of time to not always think the worst and kind of not be like texting her like, yo, where you at? It has its, advantages and disadvantages. Anyway, for her, it helped her. It helped her understand. Even at that tender age, I want to say I was like 21. I think she was a year younger. She was like 20. Or maybe I was 22. She was 21 because I think we used to go to a bar together. And I remember celebrating her 21st birthday. So she's around 21. Even at that tender age, like when two adults, have pain, and they're able to really let it go, and I don't know. I don't even know who she is. She's not my Facebook friend, but I would be curious because it was very productive. And I think because, high school, you remain friends and all that. I mean, when you're in like go to high school with somebody, you remain in friendship. They may still be friends to this day, on Facebook or, who knows what that turned into now. But that is that respect. And I'm almost thinking is because, they grew up together. And the respect that they have for each other was incredible, probably. And he probably didn't want to hurt her, and he did, and he has some remorse. And hey, so always be for opponent. I think the slogan for opponent, not to be somebody's opponent, is humility over pride. Humility over pride will separate you from being someone's opponent in a relationship. All right. Remember that now. Opponent, that's not what you want your significant other to be, somebody that you're trying to beat. And I don't mean physically, just in anything. This has been another episode of the Shades of a Man podcast. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. And we'll see you next week, because remember, this 6-week series is gonna be weekly, not bi-weekly like the rest of them. You guys have a wonderful day. See you.
Yeah. Sometimes it might rain, sometimes it might snow, sometimes you might cry, be sad, you know what that's shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man, shades of a man. Sometimes you might stop, sometimes you might go. You might make mistakes, but that's just how you grow. Shades of a man, baby. Shades of a man, shades of a man.